Howdy, y'all. Rowan here. Welcome back. Not just to all of y'all, but to me. It's been a minute since I've made a YouTube video. And I want to address that real quick before we launch into today's video. I've just had a lot of life stuff going on, quite frankly, a lot of stuff in my personal life. The long and short of it, I will probably get into it in another video, but the long and short of it is I'm going through a divorce. I love my husband very much, but there are certain things in our marriage that cannot be looked past, and certain things have happened, and yeah, I'm currently going through a divorce period, which is a very weird liminal space to be in. I found the beauty in it, but it's really tough. And when I don't remember if her name is Chrissy or Christy over at Green Eyed Tarot. She recently posted a video where she discussed brain fog that has resulted from her perimenopause or premenopause. I'm confused on those words, I'll admit. But she was discussing the way that she has struggled with tarot, and deep diving decks has sort of given her a focus point through that brain fog. And with my divorce, I am experiencing something similar where I'm having a really hard time making decisions, because I'm making so many decisions in the rest of my life that something as simple as pulling tarot cards is really difficult for me. I don't know what questions to ask. I don't know how to interpret the cards. I don't even know what decks to reach for, which is something she talked about as well. So, oh goodness, my nails are filthy. Excuse me. I'm going to go clean my nails. I'll be right back. Okay, hello. Nails are slightly cleaner and we're ready to go. I think I was saying, Green Eyed Tarot posted video, decks to deep dive, brain fog, dealing with it myself due to divorce and decision making hard. So I have been trying my best, failing, but trying my best to keep up with the Drop 'em 78 challenge that Mindful Tarot, Esther over at Mindful Tarot is doing. We're going to start there. So for the decks that I'm deep diving, I've got, I'm just going to link a couple of videos down in the description box. If I am not explaining myself well in this video, just go watch those other videos instead, and you'll then come back to this one and it'll make a little bit more sense. Like I said, brain fog, not thinking clearly. I don't even know what needs to be said at this point. So I'm just going to kind of launch into it. The decks that I've been using for the Drop 'em 78 challenge are the first ones I want to talk about on deep diveable decks, because they're the most obvious. So the deck that was initially my pick for the Drop 'em 78, which is a tarot study and meditation thing, was the Enchanted Tarot by Monty Farber and Amy Zerner. Right? Monty Zerner and Amy Farber? I actually don't know which names go where. But as you can see, I currently have this deck in some semblance of order. I've colored the edges myself, and they match the suites and the borders on them. I'm way behind. I am on the 5 of Hearts right now. Wait, no, I'm on the 4 of Hearts. Here we go. And we had a little bit of confusion there. I'm on the 4 of Hearts right now. So, I'm very behind, but I'm doing multiple a day at this point to try to catch up so that I can end off the year at the Fool the same way everybody else does, or at the World, I think. We end at the World, along with everybody else. But this deck is a collage deck that is... Let me just flip through some of them here. This is a collage deck that utilizes fabric to make the collage. It's a super beautiful deck. It's one of my all-time favorites. I have 2 editions of it. I have this large edition that is published as the Enchanted Tarot, and then I also have a smaller edition, the Zerner Farber Tarot, which is like a pocket-size, borderless version of this. And this deck is really good for deep diving, not necessarily because, I mean, like, the symbolism is really interesting. Like, all of these elements I thought were chosen for beauty's sake, but actually they're not. They're chosen specifically and deliberately with symbolism and storytelling in mind, but without the guidebook for the Zerner Farber Tarot specifically, a lot of that symbolism just went over my head, or not for the guidebook for the Enchanted Tarot specifically. The Zerner Farber one doesn't really focus on what is pictured in the cards. It gives you some really good relationship information, but hold on, I'm going to bop down. Ugh. The Enchanted Tarot guidebook, this little guy that came with that big old deck, this is a fabulous guidebook that I have really enjoyed getting into. I like the way, excuse my cats, they're running amok. I like the way it's got an index at the back that's so cool. Like, I love it. But I like the way it breaks down the description of the cards and so on and so forth. It gives you like separate messages over here that are quick readings, and then it gives you like a long description of the symbolism that's utilized, what the picture is actually depicting, so that you understand the artist's intention, and then it gives you some ways to interpret it here and here. So I really enjoyed deep diving that bad boy, and the deck that I accidentally stumbled into using for collaboration with that is oh, good gracious, the Tabula Mundi Tarot. This is a Thoth clone. So this deck has this one's also in order. This deck has sort of allowed me to get a better understanding of, here, let me hold it closer, Thoth symbolism and keywords and astrological associations. And I've thoroughly enjoyed using it as my, what does she call it? Calibration deck. I wasn't intending to use a calibration deck, but I started the first day and I pulled a couple of cards from different decks, and this deck made it into that pull. And then the next day I pulled a couple of cards from some decks, and this one made it into that pool, and so on and so forth, realizing I was pulling with this one every day. And so now I just kind of pull with these two, and then every 4 days or so I'll go back and ask myself, okay, what decks in my collection have my favorite depictions of these cards based on the Enchanted Tarot and the Tabula Mundi? So those are two that are very good for deep diving. Imen Maline has a huge-ass guidebook for the Tabula Mundi called Liber Mundi, and it's in black and white, but it's very esoteric, and it includes a lot of stuff about mythology and Kabbalah, and it's a really interesting read. Astrology stuff is in here too, so it kind of covers all of those points in how you could possibly read the tarot. So those two books and decks have been actively utilized for deep deck dives. Now I want to go through a couple of decks that I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, I've watched the video, the Green Eyed Tarot's video a time and a half now, so I remember some of the decks that she talked about, but not all of them. I know that she mentioned, I know for a fact that she mentioned the, what's the name of this deck? The Somnia Tarot. I do agree that this is an excellent deck for deep diving, the Somnia, but I don't have the book that comes with this at this time. I do plan on getting it at some point. My version is trimmed, so this has been modified. I do plan on getting the book at some point, and then I would be open to doing a deep dive, but at this time, I do not have the wherewithal to actually deep dive this deck properly. So it's more like an honorable mention for me, because Chrissy is correct in that this is absolutely a deck worth spending time with, studying, and getting to know. And because of that, I thought I would give it a shout out. I do also own this deck, obviously, so it had to be included. Another one that I am pretty sure that she mentioned in her video was the Wildwood Tarot, the Greenwood, Wildwood, shoot, one moment. Yeah, the Wildwood Tarot. I get the two confused. One of them's out of print. Oh, my cats just locked themselves into the bathroom. I'm going to have to deal with that. later. There's a whole other exit they can go through if they remember that this apartment is circular. Anyways, this deck is meant to be spent time with. The guidebook for it, let me grab that. Oi. The guidebook for it specifically recommends spending 1 year working through the deck as a year in the wild would. It gives you this circle that goes through the different pagan, like modern pagan holidays that were popularized by Wiccanism. So it gives you like Midsummer Solstice, Lammas, Autumn Equinox, Samhain, Imbolc, all of that. And it allows for a reassignment of all the cards to specific areas of the year. It's not as precise as, say, the Deccan Wheel, which is down to specific dates. This is more of like, okay, this card, like for example, card number 20, the Great Bear, which is like representative of judgment. The Great Bear here is positioned at the winter solstice. It does give us a specific date for this one because it's the solstice itself, but then over here, the position on the wheel, that just indicates it's right in the center. We've got some more. Here we go. Geez, I keep finding all the ones that are at specific spots. So yeah, some of them are at specific dates, like these bad boys, Major Arcana. Oh man, brain fog's so real. I have not been doing great at thinking. But the cards oftentimes. I was saying that the cards oftentimes aren't just for specific dates, but like some of them are moving away from Beltane or moving towards winter solstice or whatever. And so it's not Crowley's Deccan Wheel. It's something totally different. And the artwork on this deck really just, it's glossy, so I apologize if there's glare. The artwork here just really transports me into a different world, a different time, a period when things were not as they are now, a time without concrete, a time with unification with the natural world. Yeah, so this deck is definitely one worthy of a deep dive. There's a lot of name changes, suit changes. It's definitely something to spend a lot of time with. And while I have spent a lot of time with this deck, I would not say that I've given it a proper deep dive yet. So that is definitely on my list. Another deck that I have sort of given a deep dive that is similar. Now we're moving into the decks that I recommend personally, rather than the ones that I share my recommendations. Oh, threw that on the floor. With Green-Eyed Tarot. This deck here is the Good Fortune Tarot by Jessica Rue and Barbara Moore. This deck, here's the backs, this deck is absolutely worthy of a deep dive. You may think that it just looks like a Rider-Waite-Smith clone if you don't pay attention to the details. Like if you're just looking at the shape of the visuals, you're going to be like, yeah, that's a Rider-Waite-Smith clone. Like look at this guy with his cups. Like, yeah, okay, that's the 9 of Cups according to Pamela Coleman Smith. But down here we have a lamp with a mouse and a heart popping out of it. And that is definitely not a bit of symbolism that is included in the Rider-Waite-Smith system. And then in some of these cards, we have nods to the Marseille tradition. Well, in all of the cards, we have little nods to the Marseille tradition. And it really brings its own energy to the table, and the guidebook is incredible, and this deck is absolutely worthy of extra attention and study. This is a deck that you could absolutely dig into with a knife and fork. Guidebook as well. Actually, hold on, I do have the guidebook to show you. It is the Good Fortune Field Guide by Barbara Moore and Jessica Rue. Barbara Moore wrote it, illustrations are Jessica Rue's, who also did the Woodland Wardens deck. I'm sure everybody knows that at this point, but still, I thought I'd say it. Yeah, this deck is a good one for chewing on, so to speak. Let me go ahead and put that away while I introduce our next deck. This is one that I kind of hate. This is a deck that I don't like very much at all, but it could be a deep dive deck anyway, and that might strengthen my bond with it. And honestly, you can tell by the bag that I put it in that it's not my favorite in the world. The bag's kind of shit. But this is the Da Vinci Enigma Tarot. I have edged it in silver. It looks like shit. What's done is done. We move on with our lives. This deck, if I were to do a deep dive with this deck, I would study it in tandem with studying the artistic works of Leonardo da Vinci, so that I could appreciate him as an artist alongside the tarot itself. And I've got a couple of other decks on this list that are like that, where I think that they should be appreciated as a study that allows you to learn about something that's not tarot related. And this is definitely one of those. So this is the Da Vinci's Enigma Tarot. This is a mass market deck. I don't like the card stock. I don't like the card backs. I don't like the fact that all the artworks are different sizes so that you don't get a uniform border on all of the cards. But like, look at that. That bothers me. But maybe if I spent more time with it and gave it a proper study, I would have different feelings about it. It is mostly in pencil drawings or charcoal drawings, I suppose I should say. But let me grab the guidebook for you to look at. Oof. The Da Vinci Enigma Tarot Guidebook. This is a pretty meaty guidebook, and it has taught me already, like, just what I have done with like utilizing this deck in the Drop 'em 78 as an occasional pull deck, to like compare favorite cards across different decks. This guidebook is not, I don't think that this is a good beginner deck, but I do think that this is an excellent deck for the art historian who also likes tarot. So that's the Da Vinci Enigma Tarot. Another one in that same vein that I'm going to talk about is the Midnight Magic Mushroom deck. So this deck is another new one to my collection. I have not worked with it. I did edge it as a bonding exercise, but I have not worked with it. I'm really thinking that what I'll use this one for is, I mean, like, you can pull it for any reading, but in particular, I think I'm going to use this for, Boroforos kind of readings, so like Shit Eater, what's the other word, like when, like millipedes and condors and like things that eat dead things, scavengers and, you know, nitrogen contributors like earthworms and things like that, like to get into that lower energy, that shadow energy, not necessarily shadow self, but like maybe wild self, maybe animalistic self, maybe like going back before animals, before plants, when mushrooms were the thing that, because like, okay, mushrooms have existed longer than trees have. Mushrooms used to be large, woody, the size of trees, and they were, before we had bacteria that broke down dead things, mushrooms broke down dead things. So mushrooms definitely get into that inner earth energy. They get into that core energy. And I don't think I'm doing a very good job of explaining this, but that's what I'll use this deck for. However, when it comes to studying it, I would use it as a mushroom study guide. And I would use it to learn different varieties of mushrooms because each of the cards on there has a different mushroom representing the energy of the card. So, well, in tandem with the little guidebook, I would also pull out, ooh, I have too much stuff on my little viewing desk now. I would also pull out the Little Book of Mushrooms by Alex Dorr and Sarah Richard, which is, I mean, it's a book of illustrations of mushrooms combined. And actually, Sarah Richard is the one who made the Midnight Magic deck. So these two make perfect sense to use together. See, Sarah Richard. These two make perfect sense to use together. Her illustrations are going to be similar. Not all of the mushrooms in the deck are in this book, and not all of the mushrooms in this book are in the deck, but I will be using them. I've already started it, but then Drop 'em 78 began, and I kind of dropped off on this. I'll have to return to it in the new year and start over. But this is absolutely an excellent companion for the Midnight Magic deck deep dive. I would also reach for Encyclopedia of Herbal Medicine. This is my favorite herbal remedy book at this time. Andrew Chevalier, love what you've done here. And it's mostly about flowers, plants, herbs, things like that. It's got some trees in it, but it does have some mushroom information as well. So wherever there is extra information about mushrooms in this book, I would also be pulling from there for my deep dive. So I have one more deck that I want to talk about as a deep dive worthy deck. And that is this little guy. Oh, let me put the Mushroom Oracle away, or the Midnight Magic Tarot away. It is not the Mushroom Oracle. That is a different deck entirely. Please forgive me. But this little deck in the white, gray, and yellow pouch is the Tarot de Carlotides. I know I'm saying it wrong, but every time I try to say it correct, it sounds very inappropriate. It sounds like I'm making... Let me just try it. Tarot de Carlotides. You see, it sounds like I'm saying Tarot de Carlotits, and I don't want to be that disrespectful, so I'm just going to mispronounce it and use ignorance and poor pronunciation as an excuse. So the Tarot de Carlotides is, first of all, one of my favorite backs on a tarot deck ever. That'll be a whole other video. This one's little. I have edged it in a dusty lavender color. This is a deck to study folklore with. This pulls from folklore around the world and gives us a Rider-Waite-Smith inspired deck that utilizes images of these folk stories to capture the energies of the cards. Now, because it is pulling from folklore around the world, some of it I understand by intuition and like recognition, but a lot of it I don't know, and I would love a more in-depth guidebook than the little white book that it came with. I would pay extra for an extra guidebook on this deck that covers the folklore that's tapped into and gives us more. This is one of my favorite cards in the deck, the Five of Wands with the horses with the sticks tied to their heads to look like unicorns. I want more information on this deck so that I can deep dive it without having to sit there and Google search Russian-looking man on unicorn for Knight of Cups. Like, I don't know. No, Bach, do not jump on my table, please. No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. My cat is currently trying to... No. You're going to spill my tea everywhere, sir. Stop it. Get on the floor. Yeah, on the floor. On the floor. No! Oh, come here, baby. Come here. But yeah, I would love to be able to do a proper deep dive of this deck. I just wish that there were resources so that I wasn't trusting Wikipedia to be getting the correct story that was, like, I will never know if it was intended or not. So that is the Tarot de Carlotides. And then let's go ahead and next talk about an obvious choice. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one. I'm not even going to go get the guidebook. This is the Tarot of Vampires. This is actually out of print at this time, but you can still find copies of it, like just about everywhere, like in person. Like if you want this deck, go to your local metaphysical shop or bookstore and or even used bookstore and see if you can find a copy of it, because there's still a lot floating around. It was only very recently discontinued. But this is a Thoth-based deck, and the guidebook is chunky. It is all text. There's no images. And if you want to understand esoteric shit when it comes to tarot, this one's a really good one for that. I don't think it's a great study if you're trying to learn Thoth specifically. I do think that this is a great second Thoth deck. So like, let's say you learn on the Tabula Mundi or on Crowley's original Thoth Tarot. This one's a good follow-up to really expand your interpretation and application of the energies of the cards as established by Aleister Crowley's interpretation of the Golden Dawn system. So that is the Tarot of Vampires with a Y. Vampires with a Y. Ian Daniels is the creator of this deck, if I remember correctly. So that one's worth deep diving. I know that Lisa Pepez literally did a deep dive of that deck with her Unicorn Fam or whatever her members are called. I don't know. I don't have any memberships on YouTube. I pay for YouTube Premium. I don't pay for memberships. I'm too broke for that. But yeah, that's one that deserves a deep dive if you get it. Another one, this one, again, is a deck that I wish had a big chunky guidebook, but you can do a deep dive through daily study, and this is the Surrealist Tarot. I have edged mine in this like quasi-matte gold. It's pretty messy, but I like it anyways. But this deck is reinterpretations of common surreal, well, not common, but famous surrealist works by the artist whose name escapes me at this time. But this deck is very fascinating. It is like each and every card is worthy of a meditation to make sure that you understand how the known meaning of the card intersects with the portrayed meaning of the card. And I thoroughly enjoy just, like, I don't necessarily even read with this deck because I find it very dense. Reading with this deck is like chewing on gristle for me. It is an act in futility, and it kind of makes me want to vomit. However, sometimes when I'm doing, like, for card studies, this deck is excellent. And if you're doing like a single card pull, I think this is a fabulous deck for that. It's a little bit busy for like I've tried doing Celtic crosses with this and I just wanted to cry. The visuals were so overwhelming. But I do like to use it for study and for single card pulls. And honestly, it's kind of a great deck for like nightmare or dream work because surrealism is so heavily influenced by the dream space. So that is the Surrealist Tarot, a deck definitely worth a deep dive. Another one is, here's another out-of-print deck, and, well, I say out-of-print. I think it currently has a print run. It's the Jonasa House. This is the 7th edition, I want to say. She currently has an 8th edition out, or she did. I actually don't know that it's still available, but she did for a little while have an 8th edition out. I have modified mine. Daring of me, I know. I colored the edges. But this deck utilizes the Marseille tradition and interpretation. It is influenced by Galician culture, which is like in between. It's an area of Spain that's really close to Portugal. And the interpretation, it's technically a pip deck, but the interpretations of the pips and of the majors and courts are very creative in a lot of ways, and it's very plant-based. So this one is definitely worth a deep dive in learning about Galician culture and plants and Marseille. So that is what I would do with this deck. I'd probably pair it with Jodorowsky's Marseille book as the deep dive, and then if I read Galician, I would absolutely get my hands on the PDF guidebook that is out there somewhere for this deck. I think there might be an English PDF guidebook, but I've really struggled to find it. So if anyone has a link, please drop it in the comments below. I'm desperate. But yeah, this is a deck that's definitely worthy of a deep dive. I say that for all of these because that's the point of the video. So please forgive me for being redundant. Another one that does not have a guidebook at all, like a physical guidebook at all, is the Aquamarine Collage Tarot deck. This one is one I could spend a ton of time sitting with. Quite frankly. Let me get rid of the art cards. This has some very fascinating, busy collage images. This is probably my favorite collage deck that I own. It's difficult for me to shuffle. The cardstock is laminated, and so it's really thick and bulky, and I really struggle to shuffle it without bending the cards. I've already creased some of them, but it is what it is. I have not figured out if I want to like modify this deck. It's been a constant struggle on my channel. If you've watched my old videos, this is one of my favorite Four of Pentacles. If you've watched any of my videos talking about this deck, I've probably mentioned, oh, do I want to edge it? Do I want to trim it? So yeah, this is just a really Some of the meanings are very in your face, very on the nose. Like we passed up the Six of Wands, which just has somebody winning and a grand prize winner ribbon kind of thing. And the hand clutching the shiny fish for the Four of Pentacles. But others of them are less obvious, like the Hanged Man card in this deck, which I may have already passed up. Here it is. The Hanged Man card in this deck shows somebody jumping off of an in-progress suspension building or bridge of some sort, and they're suspended. Well, they're not suspended is the thing. They're free falling through the air. So it's a twist on the Hanged Man that is really fascinating. And for that, this deck deserves a lot of time, love, and attention. And I will probably like do that one day, write my own little guidebook for it. I say write my own guidebook. It'll probably just be like keywords and a sentence or two here or there of like insight. But maybe someday I'll do that. I intend to, but what I intend is not always what happens. Let's move on to this. Okay, so I've got 3 left to talk about. I've talked about so many decks in this video. I'm not sorry. So the next 3 are all mass market. So the Aquamarine was indie, but the next 3 are all going to be mass market. And honestly, any of this artist's decks you could do a deep dive on, in my opinion, but this is the one that I have, and so this is the one I'm going to talk about, and that is the Phantasma Tarot. This one does not need a deep dive because it is difficult to understand, but because the art is so chock full. Let me put it that way. Much like the Aquamarine, it's a little bit on the busy side of things, and there are so many purposeful details here that deserve attention and understanding. And because of that, this is a deck that I like to, when I pull it, when I use it for a reading, I spend time with it. I don't just pull it, get the meaning, and move on. It's one that I have to sit and mull over. I have to grind all the herbs and fruits into a liquid to properly enjoy the beverage, if you know what I mean. So this is a very beautiful deck. It's my favorite Paulina Cassidy deck. And it just brings me a lot of joy, and it's one that really asks for your time if you're willing to give it. It's very Rider-Waite-Smith based, but that does not mean that you're getting Rider-Waite-Smith illustrations. These are like this 3 of Swords is a creative take on the, like, we get the 3 swords in the heart symbol, but we also get him reaching for the lesson, the understanding that is behind them. So yeah, love this deck. The guidebook is pretty good, but it's small, you know, it's not extravagant. So I would love to have an in-depth guidebook for this one, like how there's one for the Deviant Moon by Patrick Valenza. I would love to have something like that for the Phantasma Tarot, where Paulina just discusses the choices that she made in the presentation of the cards. All right, next to last deck. This one is controversial to me, myself, and I. This is not a deck I like either, but this is a deck that deserves a deep dive if you are going to read with it as a tarot, or if you're going to modify it and make it work for you as an oracle, which is kind of what I'm trying out with it right now, and that is the Hush Tarot by Jeremy Hush. This deck does not... So you can see here, it does come with a little booklet that you can, like, it has some explanation for the cards, but quite frankly, so many of these cards feel repetitive, redundant, repeating. Did I say repetitive, redundant, or repeating? The artwork here just... A lot of it doesn't super stand out for me as like giving me immediate meaning and understanding. Like this one here, the 9 of Cups, this means nothing to me. This is not giving me 9 of Cups energy. I don't know how to interpret this artwork as the 9 of Cups. So this is a deck that requires a deep dive because it does not... It's not necessarily showing you the card meanings that you are familiar with. Some of them are very on the nose, like the Tower card is a tower, the Sun card is a sun, but a lot of them are vague and weird, like let me find, the Hierophant. It's got the keys, but that's it. Like this just is not doing it for me personally as a Hierophant card. I don't know what these birds are. I'm sure if I were a bird person, if I knew my birds, this deck would probably make a fuckload more sense to me. But because I don't, it's a miss. It's some of this artwork was obviously made for the deck, but some of this artwork is obviously not. And because of that, readings kind of take me out of it. I fucking love Jeremy Hush's artwork though. So I want to keep it and I want to find a way to use it, which is why I'm testing it out as an Oracle deck where I've taken out some of the cards and I'm using it that way. I say using it, I haven't actually done that yet. Like I've done the going through the deck and taking out the cards, but I have not properly incorporated it into my practice yet. So, but the last deck that I want to talk about is another one that has not been properly studied or incorporated into my practice. I still have it in order. I have modified it, but I do that when I first get my decks as a bonding exercise. So if I'm going to modify a deck, I try to do it as quickly in my life with the deck as possible. And this one's going to surprise no one because for a lot of people, this was their first tarot deck. And that is the Osho Zen Tarot. I don't like the artwork. I'm going to be real up front. The artwork is not my style. It's not my thing. It's a little bit too 2006 for me. When did this even come out? That would be so funny if I were just like painfully on the nose. I'm pretty sure this is older than 2006 though. Let's see here. Go to the 94. Yeah, 1994. That checks out. But this has a huge guidebook for a deck that came out in 1984 that was not from Llewellyn. And actually, who publishes this? St. Matthew's? St. Martin's Essentials, excuse me, St. Martin's Essentials. And this does have one extra card in it. Oh, I love the edge job on this. I love the edging that I've done on this. I think it's really pretty. It's still in order because I want to save it for a study. I'm going to copy in my tarot, like the tarot textbook that I'm making for myself. I have pictures of the Rider-Waite-Smith, the Thoth, and a Marseille deck. And then I'm going to have pictures of this deck as its own system of tarot, because that's what this kind of is. It's really its own system. And because for so many people it was the deck that they learned tarot on, it is going to be that fourth system for me in my textbook. So this is one that I am definitely holding off on. I don't think I'm going to do a study of this until late spring of next year. I just don't anticipate that study happening anytime soon, but it's for sure a deck that deserves the time. There's suit changes, there's major arcana card changes. It's just as thoroughly rethought as the Wildwood is, and then some. So those are my deep dive decks. I had a lot of them and I've kept you here for long enough. I've kept me here for long enough. I kind of smell bad, so I'm going to go take a shower. Thank you for hanging out and listening to me talk. If you've got a couple of deep dive decks and you want to talk about them, share them down below in the comments. Like this video if you made it all the way to the end, or if you didn't make it all the way to the end, I'm sending you through the ether. I'm sending you the incentive to like it anyways. Ooh. Share this video with your tarot loving friends, or don't. That's fine too. Subscribe to my channel if you would like to keep up with when I do post new things. I'm not promising they're going to come with any regularity because, again, life is tumultuous at this time. But yeah, thank you for hanging out. Thank you for looking at decks with me. Mwah. Love you. Bye.